Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter, and welcome to Goldilocks Global Banking News. Folks, many of you have heard that there will be a crash of the U.S. dollar. There will be a crash of the U.S. economy. And people may have concerns that this will actually stop the RV. Goldilocks today is sharing some very important information to shed some light on that topic, on whether or not a crashing U.S. dollar would stop the RV. Let's jump right into it. Very important, folks. First, Goldilocks is sharing on Vietnam that Vietnam's increasing emphasis on the private economic sector within Vietnam is actually moving forward. This is very important for the Vietnamese Dong, whereby Vietnam is opening its borders to other countries. Vietnam passed a resolution through their constitution called Resolution 68, which its vision is to further support the vision of opening the private sector in Vietnam, meaning private businesses being able to come into Vietnam and do business, and how this will strengthen the Vietnamese Dong. This is happening right now, and Goldilocks just wanted you to be aware if you haven't been paying attention. Vietnam's government still plays a very significant role in guiding economic policy and controlling the rate of the Vietnamese Dong. It is what they call maintaining a socialist-oriented market economy, where the Central Bank of Vietnam controls the rate of the Vietnamese Dong. But by them passing new laws, changing their constitution, this begins to make a shift for the Vietnamese Dong and the Vietnamese economy. This is why you've seen, as a result of the tariff negotiations, so many meetings that the Vietnamese government has been having with the United States, and even Vietnam visiting the U.S. to cut deals, sign contracts with companies within the United States and state agencies within the United States, such as Iowa and Ohio. We are witnessing not only a global economic shift, but a spiritual shift, whereby you have countries like Vietnam that for the first time entering a new chapter to allow other countries and private companies to do business on a large scale within Vietnam without having to go through a red tape process. Now let's get into the dollar potential crash, which some may be thinking would prevent or stop the RV. Goldilocks is saying that if a currency goes to zero, let's say the dollar, digital money could establish a new value system if that happens, potentially based on global standards or stable assets. What Goldilocks is stating is that there is a mechanism in place to prevent the US dollar from crashing. There is a measure in place for all currencies to not crash. You may ask, what is that measure? What is this mechanism? It's called Basel III. Basel III. Because the capital requirements for all banks must have a certain amount of money in their reserves, gold in their certain amount of gold in their reserves, and foreign currency in their reserves, and also XRP in their reserves. So an adequate amount of money, gold, XRP, and foreign currency. The new financial system, Goldilocks is stating, many sources suggest that a new system is more likely to evolve through central bank digital currencies and stablecoins, or blockchain technologies, rather than a sudden reset of currencies. Why? Because stablecoins and central bank digital currencies help to maintain the value, maintain the new rates of currencies. Central bank digital currencies backed by central banks would likely carry forward existing value frameworks, while stable coins could peg an asset to the US dollar, therefore giving every asset, every currency stability. We are witnessing a de-dollarization throughout the world. What that means is where countries are dropping the US dollar for their own currencies. That's called de-dollarization or de-dollarizing, where they will stop using the US dollar more so in trade. This is why the US dollar has been the big dog on campus throughout the world, because it's been the dominant currency for the majority of countries, where they've been utilizing the US dollar more so than their own currencies. That's what's given the US dollar such strength and stability for so long. While some countries push for reduced dollar reliance, the dollar's dominance is still at 59% of global reserves and 64% of world debt, which makes a likely immediate shift not so much to happen, where there's not going to be a flip of the switch and all countries will move away from the US dollar. However, there is a gradual shift now whereby countries are doing so, shifting away from the US dollar. So just so that you're aware, if there was a collapse of currency, a crash of the US dollar, the new financial system would assign new values based on government-backed stablecoins or asset-backed tokens. Recent articles indicate that central bank digital currencies and blockchain technologies are likely to shape the next financial system. Aren't we waiting for stablecoin regulations here in the United States that are presently being negotiated within the Senate? Digital asset regulations is what President Trump, within his first 30 days in office, put forth a study workforce for digital assets to make sure they brought digital assets regulations to his desk to be signed once it went through the House and the Senate. All of this is necessary to be in place, meaning stablecoin regulations, to also assist so that there's not a crash. Just imagine if there's a crash and the US dollar goes to zero, there could not be a revaluation of all currencies. Mathematically impossible. So, Goldilocks wanted to emphasize that do not, no matter what you are hearing, do not be alarmed to think that there will be a quote unquote crash for the US dollar to go to zero. It's very improbable without extreme disruption throughout the world. The transition that we are in would require careful management to avoid instability or inequity. Always approach claims of a total financial reset or crash with skepticism, because a crash per se is often lacks substantiated evidence. The complexities of how that would need to happen would mean that if the US dollar were to crash and go to zero, and it makes up for almost 60% of all banks around the world, if it makes up for almost 60% of global reserves, well, you know right there, 60% of all the world's economies will crash. It's not going to happen. Stay focused and do not allow distractions to get you alarmed, especially as we get closer to the end time for this event to occur. There will be more and more distractions. Fear will be pumped, as if it's not pumped every week from your favorite foo-foo fighters, and then telling you, oh, there's a delay. This happened, that happened. Folks, begin to establish your relationships with the actual people, the bankers, the professionals, the real boots on the ground of the bank, who will be exchanging your currency and managing your wealth to grow your wealth. It's your choice to do what you want to do that's best for your investment. Yeah, I know some of you may not have. It's like the notion of people don't value what is free. People also don't value what might be cheap. So many of you have invested in currencies and you haven't had to invest much with an expected return. So it's like borderline free, borderline cheap. So you're not really invested your time to really learn about it, other than what you're hearing from someone, some guru on the internet. I thank God that me and many others have not put our life and investments in the hands of others. I hope that if one of you listening to this, you make a decision. I know your hearts are into certain things that you hear that makes you feel good. It's not a good place to be in an investment where you just go along with what someone is telling to make you feel good. It won't feel good when it comes time for you to exchange and you have no clue where to go and what to do. Stay grounded, beautiful folks. I share this with love. Be well. Ciao, ciao.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the number one source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.